or Wentz? Nate, Kyle.
As much as I can appreciate Dak Presscott and what they're doing with the Cowboys, I'm going with Carson Wentz and the Eagles. I'll go with the division leaders. And I know there's some questions that people want answered. You know, what's going on with Alshon Jeffrey? I mean, how could he be a number one wide receiver and not have over 500 yards? Well, they addressed that in the draft. They went out there and they drafted 3 wide receivers. Their tight end play is fantastic. You see the jersey that Peter routinely puts up behind him. Miles Sanders is fantastic at the running back position. So if you encapsulate everything that they were trying to do last year and at times inconsistent and what they did with the draft, I feel like this offense is going to be a lot better. Now, a lot of pressure falls on Carson Wentz, and I feel like he's perfectly fine with that. And for those that are questioning Jalen Reagor, he's a perfect fit for this offense and what they want out of him. I'll ask you this. Would you rather have an offense with Jalen Reagor or an offense with rigor mortis? Because last year it seems like they were stiff, they weren't alive, and all of a sudden I feel like this offense has some juice.
Very serious, Nate.
Wow, rigor mortis, but Nate is loose this morning. Listen, who do I want to be? I want to be Carson Wentz. I have a contract. You know, Dak's getting his card declined on Amazon, and I know Dak on paper is better players and better stats. Doesn't it feel like empty calories a little bit? I mean, I look at last year. He plays the Patriots. They score 9 points and lose. A de facto title game against the Eagles, week 16. They scored 9 points and lose. And I know maybe Jason Garrett, maybe he was at fault, but that does feel like a very convenient scapegoat. That's all gone now. You got every player in the world. You got an offensive coach. Dak, if not now, when? I'm going to go Wentz until further notice.
Yeah, first off, I just think condolences from our entire show to Dak and his family. Incredibly joyous weekend for so many Cowboys fans and the organization. Huge tragedy for Dak. So we're all in Dak's corner and hope all works out for him moving forward. Just condolences there. But I will say this. I would rather be Dak in the situation, knowing I've got CeeDee Lamb coming in, knowing Amari Cooper's still here, knowing that Ezekiel Elliott's in the back, and knowing that I'm the quarterback. Like, there's no doubt that he's a quarterback. And Cowboys fans know that he's won a playoff game. He's their guy. They'll figure this thing out. The contract will work out. Carson Wentz, the stats are insane how many seasons he has finished and not been the quarterback in the final game. And I think that fan base, as much as they love their Carson Wentz and they're defensive of Carson Wentz, there is a bit of feistiness of like, okay, are you the guy? Are you the guy? Because Jalen Hurts gets drafted in the second round, and the reaction wasn't, how dare you do that to Carson Wentz? It was, why didn't we take another position because we need that? It wasn't like this insult to Wentz. I think Eagles fans know the score. They know that Carson Wentz needs to stay healthy, and they also know that he hasn't been able to finish the season the last few years.
Yeah, I think the quarterback that gets to bet on himself is always in the best position. It's how they think. It's how they're wired. So I agree on Dak Presscott. At GMFB, with your thoughts, who do you think's in the best position? Who would you rather be? Heading into 2020, let us know. Hashtag GMFB. Rigor mortis makes its way into the show. Who didn't see that coming? Okay, the Steelers, they did not draft a quarterback. What's pitched there? I think Nate called him Grizzly veteran Ben Roethlisberger, who kind of looked like he'd been social distancing way before any of this all went down. But in Pittsburgh, he started just 2 games last season due to an elbow injury. He's up and throwing again, so big deal or no big deal that the Steelers didn't take a QB, Schrags, Kyle.
Yeah, look, they certainly have a lot of faith that he can stay healthy, Kay. And that quarterback position is what actually kept them out of the playoffs last year. And as much as we love the Duck Hodges and the Duck Calls and Mason Rudolph and what he did, neither one of those guys were able to win a big game down the stretch. And now I'm looking at their current depth chart, and it looks like a New Jersey diner menu. You've got Rudolph, you've got Hodges, you've got Paxton Lynch, JT Barrett's on there. This feels a bit like the old adage, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And of course, I'll let you guys do the George Bush president line afterwards. But I don't know if you can go into this season without another quarterback option, considering last year this was a playoff team. The defense was great, and they did not make it because of the quarterback.
New Jersey diner, you can get a club sandwich and oysters Rockefeller in the same menu. I think it's a huge deal because I'm starting to crush on something. I'm starting to crush on the idea of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cam Newton joining forces. That's my new crush for Cam. Ooh. Guys, Roethlisberger can't stay healthy. Spoiler alert, I hope he does. He probably can't. Cam goes there, will get in. And basically, Cam and Ben are kind of almost becoming the same guy. This big dude who takes a lot of hits and gets hurt and chucks it downfield and stays in the pocket for a long time. I would love to see that for Cam Newton, the next chapter of his career after Ben. What say you, Burleson?
I'm right there with you, KB. I love that idea. Superman in the City of Steel. For me, I'm looking at Big Ben and his influence on this team. So if you're asking me if this is a big deal or no big deal, it's a big deal because I feel like Big Ben, he somewhat kind of orchestrated them not drafting a quarterback. If you look at him being banged up, and then Mason and Devlin not really doing their thing, they should have went quarterback. But what happened was they looked back a couple of drafts ago when Mason Rudolph was drafted in the 3rd round, and Big Ben came out and was like, well, I'm surprised they took a QB in the 3rd round. I thought maybe we can get a player that can help us now. Nothing against Mason. I just feel like we can get a guy that can help us right now. He went on to say, when asked, well, what if Mason asked you a question? He said, I might just have to point him to the playbook. So he wasn't going to mentor him. He wasn't happy with the 3rd round selection. So what if they did that again? Big Ben would have spoke out again. So I think it's a big deal because at his age, even being banged up, Big Ben is influencing the decisions that they make.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to look at it. I wonder if other people or fans think, listen, we were 8-8 with struggling quarterback play. We're right there. We didn't have Big Ben. We have Devin Bush. We have Minkah. Maybe they are in win now mode through and through, ride or die for their guy, Big Ben. Let's talk Broncos. Nate brought this up yesterday. I've been talking about it a lot. I love their draft. I love their offense. Elway said Denver needed some pass catchers. What did they do? They used their first 2 picks on wide receivers. Big deal or no deal that they did that for the first time in franchise history. Kyle, Nate?
Huge deal. There's a whole genre of movie montage scenes called suit-up scenes where the hero is covering himself with war paint and putting on headbands and collecting weapons, and it's Schwarzenegger and Steven Seagal. That's what it feels like. It feels like the Broncos are suiting up to take on the Chiefs and just getting ready for battle. They got everything. They got the big receiver already, Courtland Sutton. They got the all-around Jerry Jeudy. And then they got the fast guy, this dude KJ Hamler from Penn State, who Nate's highlights is going to kill. Nate's going to say KJ's going Hamler, and we're going to love it. I feel like this is a Mahomes keeping up with the Mahomes type factor here, and it's Schwarzenegger and Raydon Chong and Commando about to take the island. I love this move.
I hear you on that, Kyle, and I agree 100%. I talked about it yesterday, and I said that they are Drew Lock and loaded. When you think about last year and what the offense didn't do, decent running game at times, but they had 9 receiving touchdowns. I think that was 31st in the entire NFL. They wanted to get Drew, the guy with the swag on the sideline, singing the Young Jeezy lyrics, a little something for his offense. One of my favorite songs by Young Jeezy is Put On. I put on for my city. I put on for. I feel like the Denver Broncos was putting on for the offense by getting him some weapons that he can throw to this year.
Yeah, look, there's 2 strategies a team can do when you've got one of these just top dogs in the division. You can load up at the position to stop them, or you could try to compete with them. I remember the Packers a few years back when Randy Moss was with the Vikings. They would draft cornerbacks in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. They would just draft cornerbacks to try to stop Randy and say one of these guys will work out. The Broncos are going the opposite way. They're just trying to get up, and they're trying to get these guys that can compete with the Chiefs. Look, KJ Hamler, I want to talk about him, Kyle, because he was a demon at Penn State, a speed demon. And they look at this guy as a slot receiver. So now you have Courtland Sutton, your big number 1. You have Jerry Jeudy, your route runner. Then you have a slot receiver. It's all there on paper. And yet, is Drew Lock the guy? We'll see. And he'll know very quickly if he's able to compete with Mahomes and the Chiefs. I'm sure we'll know right away if this team is for real.
They're putting their young quarterback in the best position to succeed. There really don't seem to be any excuses for Drew Lock to have a breakout season year 2, my Mizzou love aside. Okay, let's talk about the Bears, my other love, my first love in the NFL growing up in Chicago. Kyle, you brought this to light, the fact that they took in the 2nd round Cole Kmet, a tight end. Now, they did release one of their tight ends yesterday. They waived Dax Raymond. So big deal or no big deal? Nate and Peter first. The Chicago Bears now have 9 tight ends on their roster. I said 9. Ed Rooney, 9.
I love it. I love it because this is a copycat league, and right now everybody wants to be the Chiefs, right? Get the fastest guys. Get the fastest guys you can. But if you can't get the fastest guys like the Chiefs, then what's next? You got to get the big guys, the bully, the strong guys. If you look at the Ravens had a 3 tight end rotation, and they were all physical, they were all strong, and they could do all things. The team that actually ended up smacking them up in the playoffs was the Titans, who had 5 tight ends. So I feel like if you're not the Chiefs, then you got to go the bad boys Pistons route and beat up the fast teams, or put Jordan rules on all of the guys that can actually run around you.
Yeah, last year it was the kickers. Remember, we had the 10 kickers in camp for the Bears, and it became a reality show. And we finally picked one, Eddie Pinheiro, and then maybe he was the guy, maybe he wasn't the guy. Now it's the tight ends, I guess. Nate's right. I mean, when you've got all different kinds of looks, you can use these players in a lot of ways. And I think Matt Nagy knows this better than anybody. You think back to what the Chiefs have had and what the Eagles had when he was with them with multiple tight end sets. But I think it all is secondary to Trubisky or Foles. What do they have at quarterback? Because all of these guys are depending on who's throwing them the ball. And I'm very curious to see how that plays out.
Nate loves that they got 9 tight ends. Nate also thinks all 9 should be given $100 million contracts. Listen, is it a big deal that the Bears roster has more tight ends than my burner Instagram account? No. As much as I love Ben Brauneker and Jesper Horsted and all the way down the roster, Peter's right. They could have 9 tight ends. They could have 90 tight ends. Do they have one quarterback? That's what we will find out very quickly when camp, God willing, opens. I think they do.
We'll see how many they carry on into this season. Pay the man or men, all 9 men in this case. We'll be back.